The recent spending bill, which threatened a government shutdown, was signed into law last week, easing the minds of many Washington politicians. But lesser known as Section 735 of the bill, officially titled the Farmer Assurance Provision, but since nicknamed the Monsanto Rider or the Monsanto Protection Act. The provision protects large biotechnology companies like Monsanto from being taken to federal court should a genetically modified organism be discovered as being harmful to the consumer. Some Congresspeople argue that the provision was a necessary concession in order to pass the spending bill to prevent a total shutdown of the federal government. But according to Colin O'Neill of the Center for Food Safety, this did not have to be the case.
I think most Americans are really disappointed in the Senate. The Senate Democrats have traditionally been a backstop against dangerous policy riders like this. These are negotiations that are no doubt very complex and very heated, but the Senate has time and time again refuted the need to incorporate these types of backdoor riders in must-pass pieces of legislation. We're disappointed that this time they acquiesced to that industry demand.
Over 250,000 people have signed a petition demanding President Obama veto the Monsanto Protection Act. Food advocacy groups are not the only ones upset. Civil rights organizations have also come out against the provision because of the secretive nature in which it was passed, having been slipped into the bill not long before it was signed into law. The provision did not follow traditional ways and was not discussed or debated in the appropriate congressional committees beforehand.
Folks like the American Civil Liberties Union, who don't traditionally work on agriculture, are very concerned about the precedent it sets, particularly given the absence of necessary Senate jurisdictions like the Senate Committee on the Judiciary or the Senate Committee on Agriculture, who weren't involved in this process at all.
Because the provision was passed as part of the spending bill and not as its own legislation, it is set to expire in 6 months. But many fear the possibility of the act becoming more permanent legislation.
We're very concerned about the precedent it sets. Industries and special interests know that incorporating little policy riders in short-term bills can be grandfathered into more permanent law. That's a concern of ours, and that's frankly a concern of many members of Congress. They don't want to see this rider become law moving forward, and we're calling on them to ensure that it only exists for the 6-month period of time.
President Obama has previously pushed for policies in favor of GMOs. In 2011, genetically engineered alfalfa and sugar beets were deregulated in the United States. Marjanasi Press TV, Washington.